Hey everybody, my name's Lucy and here is my video on building this deck pond. I hope you enjoy. I apologize for the shaky video. I'm doing this on my iPhone. Anyway, I told people on social media that I was going to document the building of an outdoor pond. And I'm not basing it off anybody's plans or anything. It's just something I had in my head. So step one of this process is I got a couple of elevated metal galvanized steel garden beds. The two interior ones look like this. So my first step is going to be to put two of these together and stack them, and then I will show you what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I've got one of the inner plant beds put together. They come with these little end caps that are supposed to go on the top. I assembled it on the bottom so that the metal will hopefully not bite into the insulation that I'm going to be using for the pond. Anyway, let me put the other one together and there will be more later. Okay, so I have the second one put together. As you can also see that they are different colors. That's not going to matter at all. These are both going to be completely covered and nobody's going to see the colors or care about the colors once the pond is assembled. My next step is to stack the white one on top of the green one. That was completely arbitrary. I haven't put any of the caps on the white one because I might need them to steady the underside in the stacking process. Since I haven't done this before, I don't know how it's going to work, but we'll see, and I'll have the next video segment once that's finished. Okay, so I have the two steel garden beds stacked atop each other. They came with the capability of doing that. There's a little pin. I had to put one upside down so I could attach them with the pin. If you were deploying these normally in your garden, like you would use this pin to like kind of stake it into the ground. This actually worked out really well. The other thing we had to do was I got a 4-foot by 16-foot roll of radiant insulation. It's basically like, essentially it is bubble wrap covered in this tough foil outside and both sides. This is part of the insulation I'm doing for the pond. It's easier probably to put this underneath the bottom planter bed before you stack them up. But I mean, they're pretty light. It's not going to be a crisis if you forget to do this step. But yeah, I would definitely do the radiant insulation step before you stack them up. Oh, with regard to the radiant insulation, I cut the 16-foot roll in half so that I had two 4x8 sections, and I put them crossways underneath. They'll wrap up the sides later once I've got more pieces in place. Okay, well, this has been exhausting, but I got the interior limed with pink Foamular 250. There are other products, but I picked this one because it had a pretty good R rating. So basically, this will be the pond, and it's basically like I've built it inside a Yeti cooler or the equivalent thereof. So the plan is that this thing will be relatively impervious to cold weather, or at least cold weather will be manageable here in Ohio. But we'll see how this does. I got a late start on this for a variety of reasons, and so cold weather is coming soon, and I'll have a chance to see how that works. Okay, so I'm in the process of finishing the wrapping of the radiant foam layer on top of the structural foam layer. Some of the structural foam kind of stuck out over the top by about 2.5 inches, but that's all right because this is actually really sturdy stuff. I mean, I wouldn't put like hundreds of pounds on it or anything, but for my purposes, this is fine. I realized I should talk about the foam a little bit more. There's 2 inches of foam on the bottom and 2 inches on each of the sides. I have taped this down a bit. I'm going to tape it some more, possibly more than it really needs to, but we're going to have to carry this outside, and I just want to be very sure that, you know, nothing comes loose. The side that's still up ended up being a little shorter than the other side. Like I didn't get the my measurements and placement perfect. This side is a little bit long. This side ended up being a little bit short. That side over there is a little bit short. I haven't decided yet whether it's worth, taping down some aluminum foil just to provide for a little bit more radiant insulation back into the pond area. But I might do that, and I probably won't show that. Oh, another thing is I did have to cut the foam down quite a bit once I got it into the house. Like my initial measurements weren't, my initial guesses at how big the pieces needed to be weren't exactly right. But luckily, the foamular is very easy to cut down with like a common kitchen knife. It just takes a little bit of while, and a little while, not a little bit of while. Anyway, it takes a little while, and of course you should probably use a straight edge, or at least be careful where you're cutting. None of this needs to be like, surgically precise or anything. Things just have to fit, and depending on, what kind of a planter or whatever external structure you're using, your measurements may be different. Like this was advertised as a 4x4 planter, both of them, and they ended up being the same size as each other, which was good, but they weren't exactly 4 feet to a side, and so that changed some of my measurements. Oh, another note about the foamular. Because I was trying to get a pretty nice tight construction in here, I cut things a little bit big, so I had to kind of wedge things into place, and some things kind of had to be pounded into place. Luckily, this particular product held up to that pretty well. I would have normally used a mallet if I could have found one, but I couldn't locate any of the 3 mallets that we have here in the house, of course. But I did locate this fish bat, so this thing has been beaten on with a fish bat, and it held up remarkably well. I mean, obviously I wasn't trying to actively break it because that would run counter to my purposes, but, careful strategic pounding should not be a problem. Okay, so here is the interior piece completely wrapped in radiant insulation. I tipped it up on its side so that I could tape up the bottom overlap here from the bottom piece. Again, you don't strictly need to do this, but because we're going to be moving it around, I didn't want this to catch on anything and rip. And I had lots of duct tape, so I just erred on the side of making sure everything was nicely taped down. On the note of duct tape, no offense to the duck company, but I have hated this product. It has been very floppy, very hard to rip by hand. Every time at least half the times that I've ripped it by hand, it has torn in the middle. So I've had to use scissors every time, and it sticks to the scissors, it sticks to my fingers. It's just been a real pain to work with. So like this had a high rating on Amazon, which is why I got it, but maybe try a different one. But you definitely want to get a waterproof duct tape, and one that will stay sticky at a wide range of temperatures. So there's that. Okay, so the next step here is I'm going to put together this little pool, basically. You probably don't, strictly speaking, need this part, but it was massively on sale at the end of the summer, and I saw it and I thought, this could provide for some interior structure to the outer layer that I was kind of missing and kind of casting about how to fix. So this didn't even come with instructions, and oh wait, no, I see them in the bag. So I'm going to put this together, and ideally this should fit just within the outer planter that I'm using for the exterior. So cross your fingers for me. Okay, so I got the kiddie pool together. It went together reasonably well. The construction is not complicated, but it was fiddly. Things just didn't fit together exactly the way you expected them to, so I had to do a little pushing and a little fiddling and things like that. If you're building something like this for your kids, I would give yourself at least 45 minutes. If everything went together exactly as expected, it would take a lot less time than that, but for instance, one of the corners didn't have a cutout, and I had to cut those out and things like that. So it just took a little bit more time than expected. If you were to build something like this for your actual kids, give yourself time, maybe have the kids occupied elsewhere so they're not, excitedly pestering you, because I think that would be very frustrating. Also, this is built to be broken down in the off season. Um, the construction didn't strike me as, super sturdy and super durable, so I don't know how many seasons you'd be able to use it that way. But, again, it was a really cheap kiddie pool, so there we go. And it's made of steel, not like aluminum or plastic or anything, so that's part of the reason I got it. And again, you don't need to do this or get this piece in particular, or a piece like it in particular, if you are building a deck pond like I am. But if you don't get this, you would definitely need to get a tarp. I could have gotten a tarp, but this was frankly not that much more expensive than a good waterproof tarp, and it provides some internal structure that I kind of figured I could use. So there we are. Okay, so the next part of the pond build is that I need to put together the exterior enclosure, which is a Vigo Garden 9-in-1 modular metal raised bed. It is similar in construction to the ones that formed the interior structure. It's another, corrugated steel thing. But this is a much better quality. Like, I can already tell just having opened the package, it's much sturdier. The paint job is better. It's got nice details like trim for the edge so you don't cut your hand on it. It came with washers in additions to nuts and things like that. So the quality of the build didn't matter so much for the inner part, but it definitely matters for the outer part, in terms of appearance, if nothing else. So I'm hoping that this is the size that they said it was. The kiddie pool is actually smaller than than was advertised. It's about 2 inches smaller on either dimension, which is actually good because it gives me more room to fit it into this. But as long as this doesn't run small, we should be okay. Okay, so I got the kiddie pool and the interior unit outside, and I've got them set up approximately where they're going to be. You can see that the kiddie pool is pretty close to the dimensions of the space I have for the pond. The point of the kiddie pool is that I was going to use some spray insulation, and like I said, if I didn't use it, I was going to need to get a tarp or something, so that the spray insulation isn't like adhering everything directly to the deck, because Mark wasn't a fan of that idea. Anyway, the other galvanized steel tall planter is going to go around this whole thing, and my next step is to get all that bolted together. Okay, so we've got the exterior put on. The bad news was that the pool wouldn't quite fit, but the good news was we were able to take off the corner pieces, and the rods actually are supported by the corrugations in the exterior metal piece, so that's pretty cool. I don't know how much more of this I'll be able to do tonight, but it's really starting to come together. Next step is to fill this part in around the sides to make, a ledge that goes across. And then after I've done that, we put the pond liner on and caulk that up, and then we should be good to go. Okay, it's the next morning, and I'm working on the interior supports for the interior ledge that's going to go around the inside of this thing. This is a mix of the scraps of the structural foam, some 2x4s that I've wrapped in pool noodles. This doesn't have to be super load bearing, like maybe some plant pots, things like that. If it were going to be more load bearing, like if I thought somebody was going to try to stand on this, obviously I would build this differently, but that's not the case. Okay, so here is the ledge built after several hours of work. I used about 6 cans of Great Stuff brand expanding foam. The type I used was rated for cracks up to 1 inch. And what I did was, that you kind of can't see, you can see it a little bit, is I used the styrofoam and other types of foam from the packing materials for all of this, because I kind of hate the idea of like that coming in and all I'm going to do with it is go into a landfill. And the good part about styrofoam and pool noodles and things like that is that A, it won't rot, and B, it also acts as insulation, so it's another insulation layer on the outside of this thing. It only goes down as far as the top of the kiddie pool frame, because I basically use that as a building point. All the insulation that you see is going to be covered by the pond liner, which is the next step. The spray foam takes about 9 hours to fully cure, so I'm going to leave it alone this evening probably, and I'll deal with the pond liner tomorrow, because it's not supposed to rain or anything tonight as far as I know. Let me see. Oh yeah, the other piece is the foamular. I really enjoyed working with that. It cuts really nicely, and if you just score a piece and give it a good sharp thwack on a straight edge, it cracks off very cleanly. So that's been really nice to work with. The outside galvanized unit that I used, I mean, it looks good, and I do think it's pretty high quality, but this was a beast to work with, honestly, y'all. If this is a 32-inch high model, unless you've got very long arms and are a tall person, you're going to find this impossible to build all by yourself, just because you won't be able to reach around to the sides like you need to. The metal is pretty thin, but more than that, it's really flexy and kind of floppy, and so when you're trying to get the first pieces together, it's challenging. They have nice hardware. The package came with an appropriately sized nut driver, which the other garden beds did not. Like, I had to go find, a ratchet that would fit and a screwdriver that would fit. And this came with, everything you in theory need to put it together. But I found it very difficult to put together in comparison to the other garden beds. But it does look really nice, and it worked out really well. It fills the space exactly as I hoped it would. And now that it's put together, I mean, it seems very solid. So no complaints there, but we did have a long evening last night putting it together. Oh, back to the foamular. The point I wanted to make was I had to cut this down quite a bit to get it to fit like I wanted it to. Do not throw those pieces away, because I used a lot of those extra pieces, which are very structural. Like, they can support some weight inside this thing. You can see pieces of over here. It was just a matter of going through and wedging things in place so that I was not abusing the capacity of the foam with regard to the types of cracks it was supposed to fill. So yeah, that's basically what I did with that. And the next step will be putting on the pond liner. Okay, it's super windy out here today, but I spent the last couple of days dealing with the pond liner. This was a much more complicated process than I kind of thought it would be. I kind of naively thought that the pond liner would just be a matter of, oh, put it down, tuck it in, tape it down, it's all good. And that's essentially what I ended up doing, but the whole problem is the pond liner is very, very stiff and kind of difficult to work with. So this was a very slow process. Your mileage may vary depending on the type of pond liner you get. I honestly, off the top of my head, don't know who made this one. It seems like good quality material in terms of it not puncturing very easily, but like I said, it's very hard to work with. I taped it down using Gorilla waterproof patch and seal tape. This also seems like a pretty good product, but the Gorilla company will provide absolutely no information about what it's made out of. You can see the tape here. And so I have no idea, and while this is well above what's going to be the water line, also you can see that it rained mud last night. That's exciting. Thanks, Ohio. The Gorilla company would not provide any information about any toxins that might incidentally happen as a result of rain runoff or anything like that. But partly because of that, and also partly because, this is just not as pretty as I would like, all the dried mud aside. I'm going to cover this with kind of uniformly cut shingles of leftover pond liner material. And so I'm going to be caulking that on later this afternoon. and I'll do another video after that job is completed. Hopefully that's going to go a lot more quickly. Okay, so the other video that I said that I would make, I apparently did not make. So the pond at this point has been in operation for more than a year, and so you can kind of see how it's doing now. This is what we have. I have multiple fish in here. I have 3 shubunkin fish that have grown quite a bit. I have a little baby koi that you can kind of see floating around in the middle, and I have an assortment of rosy red minnows. So here's how I constructed the rest of the pond, sort of the border inside the outer shell. I did the tiling with scraps of pond liner, like I said, but of course that looked, you know, not that aesthetic. So what I ended up doing is covering that with some slate charcuterie tiles that you can buy pretty much anywhere, like home goods stores, Amazon, Walmart, places like that. They sell them in a variety of sizes, so, you know, if you're doing a project like this, just pick ones that seem appropriate for what you have. I think the ones I have are, some are 6 by 8, others are other sizes, but anyway, I put them in place using expanding foam like I'd used on the rest of it, and then I covered the whole thing in Plastidip, which I did some research on that before I used that for the pond. Everybody said that it is pond safe once it's cured. It's basically a type of rubber, sprayable rubber, and it has held up extremely well. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised by it. People use it like on their cars and things like that. But anyway, Plastidip on top of slate and foam, and it's been pretty good in terms of, you know, being durable. And overall, so far, the thing has worked out well. The pond itself holds about 160 gallons when it's full, and it's pretty full right now because we've been having a lot of rain. One thing I've noticed is that the sides inside, and you can't necessarily see it, have been tending to bow out a little bit because of the water pressure. I mean, 160 gallons is kind of, you know, a significant weight. It's about 22 or 23 inches deep, which is appropriate for a pond. I feel like the fish have plenty of room to swim around, and all that's been good. But the upshot is that I'm glad that I put everything inside the swimming pool frame, because I feel like that's given the sides a little bit more rigidity and than it might have had otherwise because of the seam in the middle. Anyway, I hope this helps somebody build a project of their own, or at least gives them ideas for getting started. Apparently, a lot of pond places are not telling people that they can build, you know, a raised pond. You know, they're all about building ponds that are below ground level, which I understand from the standpoint of preventing water from freezing. But honestly, this did not freeze over the winter, like not even a little bit. I did have a heater in here, but it wasn't anything crazy, and I didn't lose any fish over the winter. It all seemed to work out pretty well. This is the filter that I'm using in the deck pond. It's been really good. It's a Danner Pondmaster garden pond filter and pump kit. Mine was not nearly this expensive when I bought it, so I would say definitely look for these on sale. This happens to be the Amazon site. I know a lot of y'all have feels about that. You know, but a lot of places sell them. The manufacturer sells them directly. It's a good design. The filter works well. The water pump works really well. And I don't have any complaints about it. It's a lot simpler to use and maintain than a lot of other garden pond filters. This is one of the ones that does not have UV filtering. That might be a bug or a feature depending on your needs, but I decided that I just didn't want the UV filtering for power consumption as well as some other things. But of course, it's up to you, but this is one solid solution in my opinion. Okay, one more thing. Talking about winterizing the deck pond, I built this cover for it. It's basically 4x4 and it's in desperate need of cleaning. Sorry about that, guys, and also it's got some spiders on it. But anyway, it's made out of two 2x4 polycarbonate greenhouse panels, and I got trim to connect them, and then also used some stainless steel screws to attach some supports, and attached some adhesive stainless steel handles so that I can lift it on and off for feeding fish and pond maintenance and things like this. And this makes a significant difference in terms of retaining heat in the winter. I mean, it's not perfect, it's not bulletproof, but it does make a significant difference, and I think it really helped. It also keeps a lot of debris from falling into the pond, which is also important because you don't want to have to like dredge 6 inches of dead leaves out of it before you get things started in the spring. So this just keeps things a lot cleaner and a lot nicer for the fish and a lot warmer. There are other solutions you can do. There are like some pop-up greenhouses that, depending on the size of your structure, you could use instead. There are other types of covers. Anyway, but this is the solution I set on, and this one might work for you as well.